drove way over into Alaska and went to one day where one of their government offices was, and he went in and he said, man, I like this state. He said, how could I become a pioneer of this state? Well, they kind of questioned what he was talking about, and finally one of the men said, well, in order to reach what you're wanting to in our state, there's two things that you've got to do. He said, what's that? He said, one is you've got to skin a bear. And the other one is you've got to kiss an Eskimo woman in the mouth. He said, I think I can handle that. So he left. About 5 or 6 days he came back. His clothes are almost torn off of him. He has scratches on his chest, his shoulders, and his back. All on his face. His hair was down in his eyes. His ear was half off. And when he walked in, they didn't know what to say. He said, could anybody tell me where there's an Eskimo woman that I could skin?
He took the bench, and I had the privilege of practicing law in his court. And then I took the bench, and I had the privilege of sharing 9 years with him on the bench. My first 9 and his last 9 years, where he continued in his role as my mentor with all sorts of sage advice, and then the other kind. And the only difficulty for me was trying to figure out which kind I was getting.
When it was raining, so Helen was out of town somewhere trying to get the number rubbed off of that credit card, but she was gone, and well, I couldn't work outside, and I didn't want to do the research. So I said, I believe I'll change the oil and filters in my old pickup. If an 8th grade dropout can change the oil, certainly I can. So I went down to the parts house and got the oil and filters they recommended, and I drove around for a good little bit, and I got home and drove up on the carport. And I jacked that truck up a little bit and slid up under it, and I didn't know the oil got that hot. And I undid that plug, and oil came shooting out, and I hollered and knocked my bucket over, and oil just went all over that carport. Well, I finally drained it, got it changed and everything. I said, now what am I going to do? You know, that woman I married is a little finicky about walking through oil going into the house. So I went in and I got Heloise's Hints. And that book said that you know, kitty litter was good to take that oil off concrete. So I run over to Fred's and get me a 25-pound bag of kitty litter and come back and spray it around. And it did real good, but it didn't do good enough. So I ran back to get me another sack, got another 25-pound bag of kitty litter. As I was checking out, the little lady said, Mr. Lackey, if I was you, I believe I'd put that cat outside. Rhode Island. And he made a trip to down Mississippi and ran through Oxford, fell in love with Ole Miss, fell in love with my first cousin, Patsy, and they got married. And A.M. was raised in a Jewish home, Jewish religion. But now he's a member of the First Baptist Church here in Calhoun City. He's a past chairman of our Board of Deacons. I checked the records in Jackson, and we were the only church that ever existed, Baptist church, that had a Jew as a chairman of the I asked him one time, I said, why did God make Gentiles, do you think? He said, well, somebody's got to pay retail. So he goes down to the coast for about a week, and he runs into an organ grinder down there that had a knocking. That sound familiar, can it? Had a knocking and a carrot. And they were both for sale. Well, he couldn't afford both of them. And so he chose a parrot. That parrot, I don't know what his vocabulary it was, but that parrot could talk and talk and talk. And you could train that bird. You could tell him what to say, and he'd remember to say it. So he bought that bird and brought him back. Went up in the attic of the church and saw the hole right above the pulpit. And he took the parrot up there, and he was training. He said, "Now when I'm gonna preach, and when I get and fire came down from heaven, you light this thing and drop down through that hole." He trained it for about a week, and it worked. So that Saturday night, he had all the lights cut out just about it, and he was saying, "And fire came down from heaven." And that didn't happen. He said, "And fire came down from heaven." Nothing happened. And he looked up and said, "I say, fire came down from heaven." Parrot stuck his head out of that hole. He said, "Yeah, and I say the cat peed on the mattress."